I'd only been home for half a day after 6 months at sea, and I already noticed my wife's butt looked way bigger than before. She kept clinging to me, saying she wanted a baby, and that weird behavior immediately made me suspicious. What if she was already pregnant with someone else's kid and wanted me to play the sucker? I'm out at sea all year long, thousands of miles away, so who knows if she's been bringing other men home. To get to the truth, and also to clear my wife's name if I was wrong, I waited until she was fully asleep. Then, using the faint light from my phone screen, I hid HD cameras around the house, packed my bags, and lied that my company had an emergency project and I had to leave on another business trip right away. I dragged my suitcase out the door, went into the budget hotel across from the complex, and booked a room facing my apartment building. I left just a tiny gap in the curtains and stared at the entrance. As long as I stayed in town, her secret was bound to come out sooner or later. I had just set up the binoculars when I saw a familiar figure walk out of the building. It wasn't my wife. It was Jolay, my childhood friend from the same village. My head started buzzing. Jolay was my best friend. Before I left for sea, I even asked him to help look after my home. So why was he coming out of my building early in the morning? And the jacket he was wearing was the limited edition one I brought back from my wife last year. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms, but I didn't run downstairs right away. I knew going at them now would only tip them off. I still had the cameras, and those would get me the real evidence. I forced myself to calm down, sat back at the computer, and logged into the camera feed. What I saw was even worse than I imagined. My wife was sitting on the couch, laughing her head off at her phone. The screen was lit up, and the contact name said, husband. But that husband definitely wasn't me. My fingers wouldn't stop shaking. I'd been out at sea for 6 months, sending her my full paycheck every month, and leaving myself just a few $100 for living expenses. And she was using my money to support another man, while calling him her husband. But I didn't blow up right away. I wanted this cheating couple to pay the highest price possible. I started going through the camera playback from the moment I left the house after installing the cameras the night before. But after just 10 minutes, every hair on my body stood up. Less than half an hour after I left, Jolay used a key to open my front door, and my wife hadn't even locked it, which meant she had clearly been waiting for him. The second they saw each other, they threw themselves into each other's arms like this was nothing new. And what Jolay said cut into my heart like a knife. He said I was just a fool, busting my ass at sea so the two of them could spend my money. He even said my wife was already pregnant with his child, and this time they were going to make me raise it as my own. Everything went black for a second, and I almost fell out of my chair. So my suspicion from the night before had been right all along. When she threw herself at me asking for a baby, it wasn't because she wanted a future with me. She just wanted a dad for her bastard kid. But I forced myself to keep watching, because I needed every last piece of evidence in my hands. And what came next exposed something even worse. Jolay hadn't just come over once. During the entire 6 months I was away at sea, he had practically been living in my house, and every corner of that place was stained with what they'd done. My wife had even taken off the wedding ring I bought for her and replaced it with some cheap silver ring from Jolay. Gritting my teeth, I backed up every video file. I saved them onto 3 different USB drives and hid them in 3 different places. Then my phone rang. It was my wife. I took a deep breath and answered. Her voice was sickly sweet as she asked if I'd boarded the plane yet and said she missed me. My stomach turned. But I still acted like I had no clue what was going on and told her I was already at the airport and about to board. She told me to stay safe and said she'd wait for me at home. The second I hung up, I let out a cold laugh. When I get back, I've got a huge surprise waiting for you two, but I wasn't planning to confront her right away. First, I had to cut off her escape route. I checked my bank records, and over the past 6 months, I had sent home a total of 360,000 yuan, but there was less than 3,000 left in the account. My head buzzed. That was 360,000 yuan I earned risking my life under the blazing sun out at sea, and she had blown every last bit of it. I went straight to the bank and pulled the full transaction history. Every major transfer had gone to the same account, and the account holder was Jolay. The notes on the transfer said things like allowance and money for baby. I was shaking with rage. Then I suddenly remembered something. Before I left for sea, I had set aside 100,000 yuan for my mom's retirement and let my wife hold on to it for safekeeping. I checked that money too, and sure enough, she had already taken it out and transferred it to Jolay. My mom has serious diabetes and needs medicine and injections all year long. That money was literally her lifeline, and those two actually dared to take even that. At that point, I could barely hide the killing rage in my eyes, but I still forced myself to calm down. If I exposed everything now, I'd probably never get the money back. I had to do this step by step and leave them ruined, disgraced, and with nothing. The first place I went was a law firm. I found the best lawyer I could and asked about divorce, dividing assets, and compensation for cheating during the marriage. The lawyer told me that as long as I had solid evidence, not only could I recover my premarital property, I could also make her leave with nothing. I could even sue Jolay and recover all the marital assets that had been transferred to him. That gave me some peace of mind. But what the lawyer said next sent a chill through my whole body. He said that if the baby was born and a paternity test proved it wasn't mine, I could also sue them for fraud. Then it hit me. Why had my wife been in such a rush to sleep with me? She wanted the pregnancy to still look early enough that everyone would assume the baby was mine. Once the child was born, it would all be a done deal. And even if I found out the truth, I'd have no way to explain it. Cold sweat ran down my back. I was this close to becoming the biggest fool on earth. I thanked the lawyer, took the documents I needed, and went back to the hotel. But the moment I opened my laptop, the camera feed hit me with another massive shock. Jolay was back at my place again, and this time he had another man with him. My heart dropped. Did that mean she had more than just Jolay? I turned the volume all the way up and stared at the screen. But what they said next left me completely stunned. Jolay told the other man that the apartment would soon be his. Once my wife divorced me, the property could be transferred over to him. Then he planned to sell it and go into business with that guy. That apartment was bought in full before marriage, and it was under my name only, and they actually had the nerve to come after my house. Meanwhile, my wife sat there smiling the whole time without the slightest objection. That's when I realized she had never planned to live a real life with me from the start. She married me for my money and my house, plain and simple. I clenched my fists, and whatever little love I had left for her was completely gone. We were college classmates, and I chased her for 3 whole years. After graduation, I ignored my family's objections, emptied out all my savings, and bought that apartment outright under my own name because I was afraid something might go wrong one day. I just never thought that even then, I still couldn't protect myself from how calculating she really was. Then I remembered something else. When I bought the apartment, my parents chipped in 200,000 yuan. That was hard-earned money they had saved over a lifetime of farming. And now those two wanted to swallow that up too. I almost couldn't hold it in anymore, but I kept telling myself to wait, just a little longer, until the timing was perfect and I could land a fatal blow. So I kept watching the camera feed as the two of them flirted in my home and talked about where they'd travel and have fun after selling my apartment. I recorded every second of it and didn't miss a thing. Then my wife suddenly said she had invited my mom over for dinner the next day and planned to tell her she was pregnant so my mom would be happy. My head started buzzing again. She was actually going to lie to my mother too. My mom isn't in good health. If she found out something like this, it could seriously push her over the edge. I absolutely could not let that happen. So I called my mom right away, told her I had an unexpected business trip, and asked her not to come the next day. I told her I'd take her into town after I got back. She was confused, but she agreed. When I hung up, I finally let out a breath, but the fire in my chest only burned hotter. She was even willing to drag my mom into this, and I was never going to let her get away with it. Early the next morning, my wife realized my mom never showed up and called me over and over, but I didn't answer a single call. I knew she had to be panicking, and that was exactly what I wanted. Sure enough, it wasn't long before the camera showed her fighting with Zhou Lei, saying my mom hadn't come and their whole plan was ruined. Zhou Lei panicked too and started cursing her out, saying she was useless and couldn't even handle one old lady. The two of them were screaming at each other non-stop, and I sat there in front of my computer with a cold grin. The dog-eat-dog part of the show had only just begun. But I never expected them to come up with something even more vicious after the fight. They were planning to fake evidence that I had cheated, then take me to court for divorce, make me leave with nothing, and even force me to pay her for emotional damages. Watching the two of them discuss it on screen made my whole body shake with anger.